According to a recent University of Michigan law study, the number of bankruptcy filers aged 65 or older went from 4.5% in 2001 to 7.2% in 2007. John Pottow, a professor of law at the University of Michigan, conducted that study. He joins us now from our Washington newsroom to discuss some of the reasons behind the trend. Professor, we should mention that you are in D.C. to attend the annual Association of American Law Schools hiring conference, so we appreciate you taking the time to join us on Bloomberg. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Mark.
Professor, how bad is this?
This is a serious problem. We're seeing this marked rise, and not only just seeing this marked rise, we're seeing that when we ask the elder filers, what is causing your bankruptcy, what's going on, what went wrong, that the overwhelmingly most frequently cited reason is that the interest and fees on our credit cards are overwhelming us. This is a problem of credit cards.
Okay, sir, you would think that given retirees on their fixed income, how are they running up so much credit card debt in the first place?
This is an excellent question. This was not what we thought we were going to find in our data. We thought we were going to find pension problems. And so we asked them further questions. What are you spending your money on? Can you borrow other money from other places? And we think that we see three things going on with these credit cards. The first, we think we have an attitude issue. And by what I mean is we find that the elder debtors are extremely reluctant to negotiate with creditors, to ask family for support, to ask charities for support, to ask church groups for support.
Sir, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it sounds like you're saying that their pride is getting in the way.
Well, that's one of the issues. Only one of the issues is pride, but the other issue we're finding as well is access. And so they don't want to ask for help, but then when we ask them, could you ask for help? If you actually had to sit down and ask a friend or family, could you borrow some money for a few months? They are answering no. So we could have an issue of some pride, but also an issue of social isolation of these elder debtors as they get on their years. They just can't turn to people for support as much as other people who can.
Not even their own family members?
No, and this is one of the more saddening aspects of this, is some of the people said the reason for their bankruptcy filing was not just the credit cards, but that they were trying to help out members of their own family. When their own members of their family said, we need some help signing up, we need co-signers of a loan to get us through this, right. Maybe mom and dad, you can co-sign the loan, that's dragging them down as well.
Professor, you know, most of us know that, unfortunately, it's a fact of familial life that it seems our parents knew how to save money more than we did. It seems to be a generational thing now. But when you talk about folks who now have put their money after they retired perhaps into the stock market, they've seen their savings, they've seen their investments take a serious hit over the last couple of years. How big a factor was that?
Well, it's interesting. It's a big factor in the wipeout of the pensions, particularly the elimination of the defined benefit pension plan. And so we've seen the savings have gone down, but by the time these guys get around to filing for bankruptcy, we see that their savings are fully depleted. They don't have any money left in their 401ks or retirement accounts, if they even had any to begin with. What we actually think is going on is not only are their savings and assets going down, but their expenses are creeping up. And the biggest expense on the expense side of the ledger we see changing is the medical expenses and healthcare expenses. We see that going up for these guys, and that's probably what's causing the squeeze, the flat assets, the flat savings, and then the expenses side going up. And I want to remind you, this population is 65 and older, right, which means most of these people qualify for the Medicare program.
Okay, is it a fact that maybe a lot of them don't understand that they qualify for the Medicare program?
No, see, what it is it's just that there's a lot of drug coverage, as I'm learning, because I don't do health policy, but I'm learning There's a lot of stuff that's simply not covered by Medicare insurance. And so when we said, are you finding it problematic to pay your Medicare premiums? You know, how much is that putting you out? 40% of our respondents saying that they were having either somewhat or severe financial difficulty just making the premium payments. Right. And that's not counting the co-pays and the out-of-pocket and uncovered stuff.
And Professor, if folks are losing their money and then they have to file for bankruptcy, I would guess that another part of this dynamic is that they can't afford a lawyer. Are they trying to find someone to do pro bono work for them?
Well, yes, and so we see some legal aid clinics that are picking it up, and one of the things we do know from the 2005 amendments to the Bankruptcy Code that just went into effect, they're pretty controversial, but they've been well discussed, is that the cost of legal representation has gone up. We've seen pretty good studies that say the cost of hiring a lawyer has gone up. Yeah. So if your savings are going down, your expenses are going up, and lawyers are getting more expensive, yeah, you'd think more of these people would try to flail around on their own. And that's what we think the real answer with the credit cards is. They're using those credit cards to sort of avoid the inevitable, charge expenses on the cards, flounder around for a bit, but eventually they're not going to be able to make those payments, and that's why this is not a solution.
Right.
This is just a delay of bankruptcy they're going to file.
Professor, in about 15 seconds, I know this is more, I guess, a personal aspect maybe for people of our generation, but it might behoove you just to call your parents or your grandparents and ask them how they're doing financially?
Well, I think that, you know, you've seen that we're used to asking mom and dad for help, and now mom and dad may need us more for help. Yeah. And that's not something that they ask for easily, so we're maybe going to help out a little bit more.
All right, John Pottow, professor at the University of Michigan Law School. Professor, thanks so much. Appreciate it.